Hi, my name's Eric, and I'll be reading you selections from the e-edition of today's Cape Cod Times. Today's date is Monday, June 9th of 2025. We'll start with the weather, as we always do. Across the Cape and Islands today, mostly cloudy and cool with stray showers occasionally throughout the day. High of 62 expected and a low of 56 in the overnight with cloudy and showers in places. On Tuesday, tomorrow, a couple of afternoon showers, maybe a thunderstorm. Decreasing clouds and warmer on Wednesday with a high of 80 and a low of 62. Tomorrow looks to be very much like today, except with maybe a little bit of rain. On Wednesday, though, warmer for sure, hitting the 80s all the way through the end of the week, with Thursday also being 82 as an expected high and cloudy, breezy in the afternoon. On Friday, pleasant with clouds and sun, a high of 80, a low of 59. So, high 50s low 80s for later in the week, and we're in the 60s today and tomorrow. Sun will rise at 5:07 a.m. It'll set at 8:14 p.m. We'll have 15 hours, 7 minutes of daylight. The moon will rise at 7:14 p.m. and set at 3:29 a.m. Heading to the front of the paper, where the news and the lottery results are kept, and we read these lottery results because somebody asked for them. If there's something you would like read to people who are blind or print disabled, you can email us at info@audiblelocalledger.org and we'll consider reading it. And if you miss any of the information that we share in our readings, you can always go to audiblelocalledger.org and click on the Listen tab. You can catch up on a week's worth of our newspaper readings that way. And in our fully disability compliant website, you can also hear a wide range of periodicals and literature for your listening enjoyment that stay up there in perpetuity. Our grocery guides stay up there as well, so you'll know what's on sale at the grocery store. All of that is free for people who are blind or print disabled at audiblelocalledger.org. For the latest lottery results, we go to masslottery.com because the Cape Cod Times goes to press too early to give you the latest results, and if you ask for them, you certainly deserve them. With the midday drawing for Sunday, June 8th of 2025, the results were 9335. That's the midday drawing, 9335. The evening drawing for June 8th, 1519. Again, last night's evening drawing of the numbers game, 1519. Winning numbers for Mass Cash for Sunday, June 8th, 15, 17, 20, 31, and 33. And that concludes the lottery results. Good luck to all who play. Remember us if you win. From the cover of today's Cape Cod Times, What Cape Cod and the Islands Did for the American Revolution by Barbara Clark is a special to the Cape Cod Times. We're on the threshold of a significant celebration, the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, and a local group is ready to publish a new book that puts Cape Cod on the map of noteworthy historical events that occurred across the 13 colonies and influenced the trajectory of the war. In 2023, historians David Martin, Nancy Shoemaker, and Ron Peterson began planning the new book centered on Cape Cod's unique contributions to the now famous insurrection of 1776. The Revolution on Cape Cod and the Islands, Issues, Events, and People focuses on events that took place across the Cape and Islands from about 1761 and the early signs of rebellion to the conclusion of the war in 1783. The stories with a Cape Cod point of view are woven into the central events of the war's timeline. The group, with a threesome and a handful of others, lined up contributors for the narrative, and a total of 30 writers provided close to 50 different segments that explore Cape Cod's unique setting for revolution. Besides the book's chronological format, there are chapters on more than a dozen Cape Codders from that era, whose activities were influential in the events of the war. Writers often made use of official town records, allowing fresh insights into wartime events, as well as journals and veterans' records that offer more detailed information about the era. According to Martin, a Cape Cod resident and history and education specialist, a fundamental purpose of the book is to correct a misimpression that not much happened on the Cape and Islands in the Revolution. That's a common perception, when in fact some important events and key individuals played roles that affected the direction of the Revolution. Martin, Shoemaker, and Peterson formed the Cape and Islands Historians Committee to develop the book. Martin chairs the committee. He recently stepped down after 10 years as president of the Marston's Mills Historical Society. Privateering by Cape and Island sailors, shipwrecks of important British ships on the shoals of Cape Cod, a battle in Falmouth in which militia volunteers successfully repulsed a British attack, and lots more, Martin said of the region's role. Most people think of the Revolution as mainly Lexington, Concord, Valley Forge, and so forth, when that's actually a vast oversimplification. Peterson, an Orleans resident, chair of the Orleans Historical Commission and a researcher, writer, and speaker on Cape Cod's history, added that the book is not just for historians but for the general public. Chapters can offer fresh or surprising takes on familiar events, he said. One example might be Peterson's chapter on the famed 1773 Boston Tea Party, including his story of the wreck of British vessel William. Who remembers there was a fourth vessel also carrying a cargo of tea and bound for Boston Harbor? The William ran aground on shoals off Race Point and was subsequently lost to the wind and waves. The ensuing saga of politics, theft, and the ultimate fate of the ship's cargo of cursed tea makes for an exciting story to top off the famous Tea Party raid. In another wartime exploit on Cape Cod, more than 480 British sailors pulled from the wreck of the British warship Somerset off Truro in 1778 were sent on an enforced march to Boston, a walk that nearly a third of the POWs would not survive. A section on Native American and African Americans who served in the war encompasses participants both enslaved and free, and adds current research available on several of the men who served with militias or the Continental Army, or at sea. Shoemaker's chapter on the Otis family of Cape Cod describes James Otis Jr.'s standout 5-hour-plus 1761 speech at the State House in Boston against the unfair practices of British King George III, which drew raves from a young John Adams, who pronounced that then and there the child independence was born. After Adams was disabled during a fight with a British sympathizer in a Boston tavern, his sister Mercy took up his fight for human rights. According to Shoemaker, Mercy's suggestions, along with submissions by other authors, resulted in the Bill of Rights. Shoemaker, a member of the Barnstable Historical Commission, is owner of West Barnstable Press, which is publishing the book. Other members of the book group include Jack Duggan, a member of the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth, Duncan Oliver, a former president of the Historical Society and coordinator of Yarmouth's Revolutionary War anniversary observances, and editor Karen Fote of Cape Cod. Once the book is published early in the summer, contributors will visit schools, museums, historical societies, bookstores, and libraries in the months ahead to share their stories of the Revolution. Martin said, "The contributors hope that the book will increase our understanding of the part Cape Cod played in the birth of a nation." Our next local story: authorities say man stole and resold food from Plymouth Public Schools, by David Smith. The longtime food services director for Plymouth Public Schools is facing charges that he stole thousands of dollars worth of food, paper goods, and equipment from the district, and then used and resold the items at his privately run snack shack on Cape Cod, according to the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office. Patrick Van Cott, 62 years old, of Sandwich, was arraigned Friday, June 6th, in Plymouth District Court on charges of larceny over $1,200 by a single scheme and larceny from a building. He pleaded not guilty and was held on $50,000 cash bail. A judge ordered him to stay away from all Plymouth school buildings and storage facilities, the DA's office said. According to investigators, Van Cott used his position to order items, including lobster meat, Angus burgers, and kitchen appliances, that were never served in school cafeterias. Instead, police say they ended up at the Sandy Neck Snack Shack in Barnstable, which Van Cott runs during the summer. A list of items that were purchased by Van Cott but are not currently in the Plymouth Public Schools storage facility was compiled, totaling over $8,300 in goods, police said. Van Cott has worked for the district for nearly 22 years and was earning $114,000 annually as of 2024, according to his LinkedIn profile and town finance records. The investigation began after an anonymous tip was sent to school officials on May 30th. Surveillance footage from April showed Van Cott removing commercial refrigerators from a school on a Saturday, taking them across the Sagamore Bridge, police said. A June 4th police search of the Snack Shack turned up government-purchased food, kitchen appliances, and other district property, police said, and Van Cott was arrested at the scene. His arraignment followed a statement from School Superintendent Christopher Campbell the previous day, noting that a then-unnamed staff member had been removed from duty due to serious allegations of misusing school property. Van Cott is scheduled to return to court on July 21st. The other local story on today's Cape Cod Times front page, today's date is June 9th, a Monday, Assembly opposes plan to remove buoys, by Denise Coffey. The Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates has until June 13th to make its opposition known to the U.S. Coast Guard on the service's plan to remove navigational buoys in Cape Cod coastal waters. At its meeting on Wednesday, June 4th, the Assembly heard from Chatham and Yarmouth harbor masters who were opposed to parts of the plan. The Assembly voted their opposition to the plan and will coordinate with the Barnstable Board of Regional Commissioners on a letter affirming their opposition, according to Speaker Randy Potash of Chatham. We'll send a letter of our position to all the stakeholders to let them know we frown on the safety issue of removing buoys, she said in an interview June 5th. The U.S. Coast Guard's modernization plan calls for removing 60 buoys from Duxbury to Provincetown, and the southwest corner of Buzzards Bay, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Sounds. 4 of those buoys are in Chatham waters: the Stage Harbor Entrance Lighted Bell Buoy, Chatham Harbor Sea Buoy, Chatham Roads Bell Buoy 3, and the Pollock Rip Channel Lighted Buoy 8 are candidates for the scrap heap. Harbor Master Jason Holm told the delegates he considered them essential navigational aids, according to an Assembly of Delegates June 5th press release. In our area, you're going to have people that rely a lot on the visual sight of a buoy, the audible sound and low visibility. Anyone that's been out at night or disoriented in the fog, when you shine that light across and you can see that buoy, it's pretty comforting to know that you are where you think, said Holm. Yarmouth Harbor Master David Condon, president of the Cape and Islands Harbor Masters Association, said 3 buoys on the Coast Guard's list mark hazards to navigation: Gazelle Rock Lighted Buoy No. 2, Bishop and Clerk's South Approach No. 4, and Bishop and Clerk's Lighted Bell Buoy No. 1. Both men called the buoys essential navigational aids in a region characterized by shifting shoals, strong currents, and frequently changing sea conditions, according to the release. The Coast Guard preaches to all mariners that you can't rely on one source of navigation, your chart plotter or the buoys. But to think that the Coast Guard would take away one of those options is quite alarming, said Condon. The Barnstable County Board of Regional Commissioners will discuss the subject at its meeting on June 11th. If there's a balancing act between safety and expense, safety clearly outweighs any expense, Potash said. Brewster Shelter to the rescue. Moving inside the paper, there's a picture of a very nice little dog on a leash with a gentleman patting its head. Animal Rescue League Media Relations Manager Michael DeFina gives Fred Christmas a pat on the head as he walks him around. Fred Christmas is a 2-year-old shepherd mix, one of 6 dogs brought to the Brewster Animal Care and Adoption Center from Care STL, a shelter in St. Louis, Missouri, that was hit by a tornado last month. The dogs had been available for adoption for several months. The league will also take in 4 cats from Ohio that had been abused. The cats will be at the ARL's Dedham Center. The dogs in Brewster are healthy and they're spayed or neutered. For information about adopting the dogs, you can visit the Animal Rescue League's website. Massachusetts gas prices slightly declined. State gas prices slightly declined for the second consecutive week and reached an average of $2.95 per gallon of regular fuel on June 2nd. That's down from last week's price of $2.97 per gallon, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. The average fuel price in state slightly rose about 3 cents since last month. According to the EIA, gas prices across the state in the last year have been as low as $2.88 on April 14th, 2025, and as high as $3.50 on June 3rd of 2024. A year ago, the average gas price in Massachusetts was 14% higher at $3.43 per gallon. The average gas price in the U.S. last week was $3.13, making prices in our state about 5.6% lower than the nation's average. The average national gas price is lower than last week's average of $3.16 per gallon. In other statewide news, unemployment claims in the state declined. Initial filings for unemployment benefits in Massachusetts dropped in recent data compared with a week prior, the U.S. Department of Labor said on Thursday. New jobless claims, which are a proxy for layoffs, fell to 4,678 in the week ending May 31st. That's down from 5,379 the week before, the Labor Department said. U.S. unemployment claims rose to 247,000 last week. That's up 8,000 claims from 239,000 the week prior on a seasonally adjusted basis. Kentucky saw the largest percentage increase in weekly claims, with claims jumping by 208.9%. Nebraska, meanwhile, saw the largest percentage drop in new claims, with claims dropping by 50%. Keeping it local as we move to the Cape and Islands section, Staples Rock in Orleans is the new phenomenal experience on Cape Cod by Rin Velasco of the USA Today network. Watch out, Plymouth Rock, you've got competition coming up. In the town of Orleans, Massachusetts, a conspicuously large rock with googly eyes sits in the parking lot just outside the Staples, located at 136 Mass 6A number 5. It has since garnered online attention, with a Facebook group in Orleans first calling attention to it. People began visiting the massive geode and taking pictures of the rock, which would later be dubbed Staples Rock. From there, it became such a point of interest that Staples Rock received its own Google Maps location, open 24/7, which led to people leaving reviews of the Cape Curiosity. Absolutely phenomenal experience. It was huge, in capital letters. It's way better than the Plymouth Rock, I think, one Google reviewer said. We went after work and it was quiet with great lighting. But where'd the rock come from? Well, here's the answer. The Staples Rock is a wide boulder in Orleans, Massachusetts that went from local curiosity to statewide attraction for its strange location and its quirky vibes. The large rock was uncovered during some sewer work on the Orleans Marketplace parking lot, according to a CBS News report. After a motor accident when a driver crashed into the Staples building in 2024, the suggestion to put the Staples Rock in the parking lot to guard the building was floated, the property manager said. That suggestion, joke or not, stuck. And now Massachusetts has two notable rocks, although one may be more historically significant than the other. The other story in the Cape and Islands section, well, it's a 50-year anniversary of Jaws. Jaws movie memorabilia in Barnstable by Steve Heslip. In case you missed it, doubtful, this summer marks the 50th anniversary of the Jaws movie premiere. Filmed on Martha's Vineyard from May to October in 1974, the 124-minute film was released June 20th of 1975. Like millions of others that summer, I headed to the theater, no ocean in sight, in upstate New York to watch. Gasping at the head popped out of a hole on the sunken boat and cheering on Chief Brody, Roy Scheider, when he finally took out the shark. Composer John Williams' Academy Award-winning movie score still thumps through my head on the rare occasions when I dip my toes into the waters of the national seashore. I had no idea then a piece of memorabilia from the film would end up filling a corner of my living room for the last 40 years. I don't have all the pieces of this Jaws puzzle. Here is what I know. My in-laws were on the island during filming. The house where Chief Brody lived was rented, and props were needed. Furnishing the house involved getting some antiques, including a small hutch cupboard, which came from the in-laws' shop in Edgartown. When we moved into our house in 1983, the cabinet arrived as a gift. We were told it had been in the background of a scene. When the 30th anniversary of the movie arrived in 2005, we got a DVD of the movie, and we got reacquainted with the classic. And sure enough, 38 minutes into the film, Chief Brody, his wife, Lorraine Gary, and son, Jay Mello, share a scene in the dining room. Standing tall behind them is this cabinet. It doesn't look famous. No autographs scrawled on the back. It has 4 drawers. Bottom 2 are hard to open. Small roll top still works great. Stores many holiday heirlooms. A pair of red stained glass windows on the top section hold passed-down china and glassware. A set of 4 small wooden wheels, which don't turn, support the cabinet. We have no idea how old it actually is, but it's a time capsule with pedigree, holding all the family's passed-down treasures while having bragging rights to a very bit part in a blockbuster movie. And completing our local news is the high school roundup. Nauset Boys Lacrosse punches ticket to Final Four by Courtney Jacobs. The Nauset Boys Lacrosse team is headed back to the Division III Final Four for the 2nd straight season. The number 2 Warriors beat number 7 Neshoba Regional 16-10 Saturday in the round of 8. Jack Pino led the Nauset offense with 7 goals. Nauset is 17-4 on the year. In other high school playoff action, in Friday girls tennis in the Division III round of 8, it was number 2 St. John Paul II 3, number 10 Medfield 2. The Lions, who are 23-1, congratulations, girls tennis, will advance to the Final Four to face off against number 3 Martha's Vineyard for the 3rd time this season. The two have split the regular season series. In girls lacrosse in Division IV, in round of 8, it was number 1 Cohasset 20, number 8 Nantucket 3. The Whalers, who were 15-5, their season came to an end on the road against the top seed, my town, Cohasset. That's where I'm from. They defeated number 9 Manchester Essex Regional 8-6 in the round of 16, and the Whalers beat number 25 Wacona Regional 15-4 in the round of 32. And that is all of the local news in today's Cape Cod Times. We'll now move to the national news, and just as an FYI, there are no obituaries in today's Cape Cod Times. This will be a half-hour reading. We have exhausted all of the local news. From the front page, Justice says Trump's win streak is a troubling message by Maureen Grope of USA Today in Washington. President Donald Trump's on a winning streak of getting quick assistance from the Supreme Court after lower courts have put the brakes on his policies. That's prompted one of the 3 liberal justices to write that the court is sending a troubling message that it's departing from basic legal standards for the administration. It's particularly startling to think that grants of relief in these circumstances might be unintentionally conveying not only preferential treatment for the government, but also a willingness to undercut both our lower court colleagues' well-reasoned interim judgments and the well-established constraints of law that they are in the process of enforcing, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote. Jackson was dissenting from the conservative majority's decision to give Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency complete access to the data of millions of Americans that's kept by the Social Security Administration. Once again, she wrote in a dissent that was joined by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, this court dons its emergency responder gear, rushes to the scene, and uses its equitable power to fan the flames rather than extinguish them. A district judge had blocked DOJ's access to personally identifiable information while assessing whether that access is legal. Jackson said a majority of the court didn't require the administration to show that it would be irreparably harmed by not getting immediate access, one of the legal standards for intervention. It says in essence that although other stay applicants must point to more than the annoyance of compliance with lower court orders they don't like, she wrote, the government can approach the courtroom bar with nothing more than that and obtain relief from this court nevertheless. In a brief and unsigned decision, the majority said it weighed the irreparable harm factor along with the other required considerations of what's in the public interest and whether the courts are likely to ultimately decide that DOJ can access the data. But the majority did not explain how they did so. Jackson raised a similar complaint when the court, on May 30th, said the administration can revoke the temporary legal status of hundreds of thousands of Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans living in the U.S. She wrote that the court plainly botched, quote-unquote, its assessment of whether the government or the approximately 530,000 migrants would suffer the greater harm if their legal status ends while the administration's mass termination of that status is being litigated. Jackson said that the majority undervalued the devastating consequences of allowing the government to precipitously upend the lives and livelihoods of nearly 500,000 non-citizens while their legal claims are pending. The majority didn't offer an explanation for its decision. In addition to those interventions, the Supreme Court recently blocked a judge's order requiring DOJ to disclose information about its operations, declined to reinstate independent agency board members that were fired by Trump, allowed Trump to strip legal protections from 350,000 Venezuelans, and said the president can enforce his ban on transgender people serving in the military. Jackson disagreed with all of those decisions. The court's two other liberal justices, Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, disagreed with most of them. The court did hand Trump a setback in May when it barred the administration from quickly resuming deportations of Venezuelans under a 1798 wartime law. Two of the court's 6 conservative justices, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, dissented. In our final story, Supreme Court to review inmates' disability ruling by John Krusel of Reuters in Washington. The U.S. Supreme Court agreed on June 6th to hear an appeal by Alabama officials of a judicial decision that a man convicted of a 1997 murder is intellectually disabled, a finding that spared him from the death penalty as they press ahead with the Republican-governed state's bid to execute him. A lower court ruled that Joseph Clifton Smith is intellectually disabled based on its analysis of his IQ test scores and expert testimony. Under a 2002 Supreme Court precedent, executing an intellectually disabled person violates the U.S. Constitution's Eighth Amendment bar on cruel and unusual punishment. The justices are due to hear the case in their next term, which starts in October. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for today, June 9th of 2025, a Monday. It was a half-hour reading because there is no more local news and very little other published content in today's paper. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other. Remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.